Welcome back to the Anything for Sports podcast. My name is Drew Jackson. I'm here with Aaliyah Matavao. She is a freshman at BYU, plays basketball for the Women Cougars. She went to Liberty High School. Aaliyah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
I'm so excited.
So we're going to get right into it. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you started playing basketball.
I started playing basketball, well, for fun. It was just like my older brother played it, and so I was like, I guess I'll just play it because my main sport was always soccer. Like I was like, soccer is it, but I'll play it for fun. So my older brother was playing it on this team, and so I was like, yeah, I'll join, like sure. And that's how I started, and that was it. Well, my older brother.
So were you always one of the tallest kids in your class? Like when you first started playing soccer?
Yeah, soccer, I was a giant compared, because, it's a bunch of little girls.
Right.
So I was always like huge, but I had no problem with it. And people would think I was a goalkeeper, but I was a striker.
So what made you start with soccer?
I don't know. I think that was just like the first. So no, my mom started me in dance, hated it, cried, like sobbed. It was horrible. Gymnastics.
Stage fright or like?
No, it was just boring. Like, I don't know. It just wasn't for me. And then she tried me in gymnastics, didn't love it. And then she put me in soccer and I just loved it. And then I like stayed with it. And I didn't try anything else because I was just like set on soccer.
So you kind of transitioned to basketball, but you kept up both sports.
Yeah. So I kept playing both. So soccer, I was like playing club and playing like travel ball. And then basketball, I started when I was like 10. Just played like fun little games with NJB at the time. It was called something like that, like a little rec league. And then, yeah, I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, yeah.
So your parents played sports?
Yeah. My mom played like all the sports in high school, and then my dad played football, and he played in the NFL for the Ravens.
So started with the parents, transferred to you, and then brother, sister. So there's a couple siblings that also play sports.
Yes.
Give me the breakdown.
So I have an older brother. He's 20. He goes to UCLA. He plays football, and he actually also played basketball in high school. And then my little sister, she's a sophomore at Liberty, and she plays volleyball, and she's like done it all too, but she's focusing on volleyball. And then I have two little brothers. They're twins. One of them swims, and then one of them plays football, but also like baseball, soccer, like all of that. They're kind of at the age, they're 11, so they're just trying everything.
So I'm going to jump ahead to something I had because you mentioned it for a second. I was going to have it later. I'm going to bring it in now.
Okay.
So I want to talk about the elephant in the room. It's like elephant, gorilla, grizzly bear. His name is Dad. This guy is huge. I remember like one of the first basketball games I went to. I didn't know who you were. I walk in, I meet the principal, and I'm like,
who is this monster?
Who is this giant? like Andre the Giant meets extremely strong The Rock combined.
Yeah.
So your dad is tall. Do you know how tall?
He's 6'7".
So he's 6'7", but he's like...
He's a big boy.
Strong. Right here, I'm going to splice in. Hopefully I have a photo of him right here. Maybe we'll do like a side-by-side. Yeah. But he's big. A big guy. So is that where you feel... I mean, mom could be strong too, but is that where you get like your...
a lot...
strength,
sorry,
toughness?
Mom, but a lot of it's from my dad. My dad's just way strong. But so is my mom. But I think a lot of my athletics are from my dad.
So do you guys... I know he wouldn't be your coach, but is he part of like your... workout training regiment, weightlifting? Did he like push you into any of that, or was he kind of like...
Well, so it was like yes and no. So he always like pushed me to do something, to like always train and stuff, but it wasn't as much as like forcing me to do it. It's like I kind of like he was training my older brother because like they were both in football, and then I was always like, I want to go too. So like when my brother would go lift, I would go lift, and he wouldn't make me do all the crazy lifts, but he would put me through a good workout. And so then it just like developed. The older I got, the more things he would put me through, like especially during quarantine, we'd go run hills, like all of that, and just became like natural. So it wasn't so much of him forcing. It's like we just knew we had to go train with dad.
So we don't want to leave mom out. So mom also had an athletic career, and I'm sure that also inspired you to kind of take the journey yourself as well. Maybe not on the weightlifting side, but with the skills. And
with my mom, it's more so just like work ethic. I think she brought and showed like how hard she worked so hard for like all of us. So like she just like showed me how I should always work hard, and that sort of aspect in the athletic side is showed me how to like be good on and off the court and, you know, be humble and all that. And that's where like my mom taught a lot and showed me how to be and stuff.
So with the siblings, I know you guys are a very close family.
Yes.
I think some of it, and we just had Adrienne on, comes from culture as well. Tell me a little bit about your cultural background.
So I'm half Samoan and my mom's white, but just growing up, it's always been family over everything. Like families are just the main and everything. And it's like a strong bond. And I think it's just how we grew up and how my parents taught us. And also I think it's a big thing is from my religion is like, we know that like families are eternal and families are forever. And so culturally too, it's just family's like the main of everything. It's like the backbone and you always know that they have your back. And so that's how it's always been. And I know that if I'm in trouble, like my siblings will always have my back and I'll always have their back.
So how did your mom, and so I come from a mixed race family too. Yeah. So my dad's black and my mom's white.
Yeah.
So how did your mom acclimate to, I'd imagine, because again, my mom, same way. Yeah. You're going to cookouts. You're like, it's a whole different experience. And my mom's from Duluth, Minnesota, which is totally a not black experience. We'll just say, sorry, Duluth, Minnesota. I assume there's like some adjusting to a different type of like family atmosphere, especially from like what I've seen in the like Polynesian community and even from kind of the stories Adrienne told, like again, it's just different, right?
It's very different. And I think the way that my mom, I have seen is like, she's just laid back. Yeah. And I think that's how she's always been. So it was easy, kind of not easy because she had to like, you know, the food's different. Food's way different. You know, she didn't grow up eating like raw meat and like poke and all that, but my dad does, or like taro, like roots, all that. But she didn't necessarily like, I don't know how to explain, but she was just laid back. So she just let things go with the flow. Like and that's how I think it worked for her. And she didn't really have a big problem with it.
So between your siblings, you guys are somewhat close, I think, in the age group between your brother and your 20. Sister's not that far from you. How is that competitive sports household like?
It's competitive. For me, when I was growing up, it was always me and my brother. And obviously, like, he was always, like, stronger, faster, but I hated that. Like, I remember always being, okay, let's race. Let's race. And then he'd beat me, and then I'd be like, okay, let's race again. Okay, like, one more time. And then same with my sister. And then when my sister got to the age where she was competitive, so then there was 3 of us, like, going head-to-head. But that included, like, games, who got to the shower first, like, who's asleep first. Like, it was, like, weird things like that. Like, we always would just, like, challenge each other. So there's a lot of competitiveness. And even with my little brothers now, I mean, my older brother's out the house. Now I'm out the house. So we don't get to see it as much. But there's always just competitiveness. We can't play a board game without, like, screaming and fighting at each other. But
I can just with your dad, too. Like, I can imagine him chasing you guys around the house, like this stampede of just like
oh yeah, just holes through the roof. Yeah, it's kind of how it is.
Okay, so balancing basketball and soccer, how long did that happen before you transitioned and said, you know what, it's basketball, like I need to focus on this?
Yeah, so it was actually I was going into my junior year of high school.
Okay.
And soccer was always the priority. And then over my sophomore summer going into junior year, I started track. I started running club track, loved it. Like, was at all the practices, like, really enjoyed it.
What were your events?
I ran the 100 hurdles, long jump, high jump, shot put, and then the 100 and 200.
Okay.
So I kind of did a little bit of
everything.
So I was going to all practice. I was going to 3 a days. So I had track in the morning, and then I had soccer, and then I had basketball. And it was really hard on my body. Like, I was dead tired. But I never looked forward to going to soccer practice. And so, like, I was always like, I have to go to soccer. Horrible. Like, basketball, I was fine. Track, I was fine. So then finally, like, I went and told my parents, like, I just don't look forward to it. And I want to play basketball. Like, I have so much fun in basketball. And my parents, like, surprisingly, like, not surprisingly, like, they just said, okay, like, fine, you can quit it. Like, 13 years. That was 13 years, like, done. Like, all the traveling, all the money, like, soccer's expensive.
Club soccer
is really expensive. And they just kind of were like, okay, like, do what you love, like, do it. And which is, like, really nice, like, to have that support.
Yeah.
And so I dropped soccer and I focused on basketball and track. And that's when I kind of felt like I was behind on basketball. Because basketball, I never was on, like, a circuit. Like, I didn't do any of that. I just played for fun. Because I was like, soccer, I'm going to go to college for soccer. And then when I didn't, so then I was kind of playing, like, catch up a little bit, I felt like. But yeah, that was when I focused on basketball.
You also, okay, I could just be making this up and you'll clear the record or set the record. Clear the air, set the record. Two different stories.
Right.
In a moment. But you played volleyball.
I did.
Okay. I'm imagining the banner. I can see it in my head. I'm like, she was on the banner. No, she wasn't. She was on.
I was on the banner.
Okay. So you also did volleyball whole time or like towards the end?
Just my senior year.
Okay. That's what I thought. Because I remember seeing the banner and I'm like, oh yeah, she plays volleyball too. Like, wow.
Yeah. So I like played volleyball all growing up, like for fun, like family reunions. Like we would all just go up in the church and play. So had a little, not like team background, but I had a little background. And then I decided to play volleyball my senior year.
Did you like it?
I loved it. It was so fun. It was such a good experience. It's like different team, like chemistry. Like it's different from basketball and soccer and track. Like it's different. But I more so did it to play with my sister. I just wanted a sport like to play with my sister.
Right.
And so
you guys played, so she played together?
Yeah, we played together.
Oh,
it was so
that's
cool.
so nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, volleyball I think is totally a different kind of team dynamic and aspect. But it's growing. And again, today, Nebraska women's team broke and set the new world record for women's
so good,
sports.
Though.
Like I was watching some of the highlights and I saw like the trailer up to it. So I mean, they had to do it at that point, but I mean, the fact that the community got behind and like actually showed up and filled the stadium. Like
that was awesome. I think that was so cool.
Yeah, that was extremely awesome.
Step for women's sports for sure.
Yes. So junior year basketball. We're focusing here. Talk to me about what that year looks like, kind of. Now, acknowledging I had put so much time into soccer. I had this whole plan of going to college and making the Olympics. And now I need to put everything into basketball if I have. Because, again, when you mentioned you weren't on any big circuits, et cetera. So if any coaches were going to see me, I got 2 years really to like
really junior summer was all I had. Really,
yeah.
Because I feel like after that, it's kind of harder.
And the girls' Liberty team didn't do Section 7.
No, we didn't. We didn't really have huge tournaments where I got viewed.
Right.
So I joined a circuit. I joined Natalie Women's Basketball. But leading up to that, then I was like, okay, I got to lock in. Like, I got to focus. I started training every single day. I started training with Sheldon, greatest trainer ever, and really got to work and just put in as much work as I could because I did really feel behind.
So what type of stuff did he focus you in on, saying like, hey, if you're going to make it, here's the area that I think you should work on or focus on? Like, was there obviously bringing your strength, I think, and you're but strength with, I would say, finesse.
Yes.
Because you are very light on your feet, and later we'll kind of go to some of the clips and we'll take a look at some of your senior year highlights, but you are very mobile.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think even now he's still when I come back, he trains me. I think his main focus is getting back to the basics. Cause I never really started the basics. Cause I kind of just played. I was just well, fun. So it's getting the footwork right, getting my handles right, just having the basics perfected. Cause that's kind of what I need. I don't need to be spin move behind the back, step back 3. I just need the basics and to have different moves to pull out my bag. And that's kind of what he started me, getting a better shot, getting my form right, all of that. And just little bits and pieces to add to my game. Not completely change it, but just add, tweak a little bit. Yeah.
I'm not going to say this was your first one, but I think it was junior year. I'll just say you became a 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
I remember you made a 3 in a game, and at some point later you came to me and you were kind of like, you got that? Did you get that?
Did you get that 3?
I'm like, yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
But I feel going to senior year, it went from, I think, junior year where I saw you shoot and make 1 3 to a much more from the summer league stuff to senior year and then Ball Dogs event, a much more consistent shooter. Where junior year, from the games I went to, I don't really remember that. Where within a year's time span, I feel you added a big piece of your game. I'm assuming that's something that you guys.
Yeah, that was a huge thing we worked on was shots, and then also just being confident enough to take the shots. I think that was a big thing for me is I know I have the shot, but I was I'm a little, let me just pass. But working with him and then finally just doing it and then getting it, having that form, like the confidence, then it was, night and day difference.
So junior year, junior season, you guys do pretty well, make it to the playoffs, and you guys got bounced by
Spring Valley.
Spring Valley, who had some tough girls, Grace Knox and Aaliyah.
And Aaliyah gals, yeah.
So talk to me about that game, how that went.
It was rough. Well, beforehand, I think we kind of came into it because we beat them pretty bad. The first, I want to say like by 20. Okay, 20. Sorry, maybe 20. We beat them pretty bad. But then, so we went into it, and I just remember like warming up, like getting hype, and then I don't know what happened during the game, but we just, didn't work too hard. We kind of just like were on a decline, and then we got beat. It was one of the hardest losses because it was like triple overtime.
That's what I was gonna say. I'm like, I don't remember every point, but I remember because I have at that point a 3-year-old, and I remember texting my wife back and forth because like the game ended. I'm like, no, it's overtime, and then it was like overtime number 2. I'm like, I'm coming home in a little bit because this is like when I first started recording. And I was like just out and about, and I'm like, oh no, 3, 4, 5. Like I felt like it was just like, but you guys were hanging in there.
Yeah, and we were fighting for sure.
Yeah,
like we wanted it bad, but I don't know. It just came to the end, and we just didn't get it. And it's losing in triple overtime is so hard. And I also got fouled out, so then I'm on the bench like helpless, and I'm just it's like torture. But it was definitely like a slap in the face.
So we're going to fast forward to senior year, another playoff run against a team you also beat by probably around 20 or so points.
Almost like 30. Like
in the season, playing Coronado, where we had a similar outcome.
Yep. So that game was really rough. I feel like we just kind of weren't there, and we didn't like want it. And in the first quarter, I like hurt my elbow. My bursa sac burst, so that the rest of the game, like it was so much pain. Like I don't know if you remember, like I couldn't like laying up, like my arm was stiff.
Weren't you slinged after?
Yeah,
the game?
I was slinged after because I had to go like see like my arm was like huge.
Yeah.
So that whole game I was injured, but I was just like it was like it's like an upset, really big. It's my senior year, and I wanted that like state championship so bad, and we played Centennial, which was our big rivals, and we played good. And we were missing Adrienne because she got like fouled out and in like the second quarter, but we played really well. And so I really thought we could do it, and then we lost to Nato, which was like huge. Like how? No disrespect to Nato, but how? So that was rough.
So you mentioned the arm injury. I think from a conversation earlier, you had one other major injury when you were younger, right around 8th grade.
Yeah. 8th grade, I blew my whole knee out. I tore my medial and lateral meniscus, my MCL, and my ACL. So that was awful.
All in one shot?
Yep.
Was this on a free kick? Was this a...
No, it was in a basketball tournament. I went up, I like Euroed, and my knee just like snapped in, and I was like, what is going on? Like at first I didn't think it was anything bad. Like I got to the training table. I was like, I'm fine. So I like go to put weight on it. Couldn't put any weight on it. And then that's when I kind of knew. And that's when I was like super upset because I just got my first offer. And then it was a really long injury. And then I rushed it and tore my meniscus again. But now it's 100%.
Good now.
Yeah.
So talk to me through junior year. You win Nevada Gatorade Player of the Year. When you won, did you anticipate or see that coming? Was that like an award you were like working for, or like when it happened, you were like...
It was a shock. I didn't really think, because I was going like, there's so many talented girls I was like, going up against. So when I first was told like I was in the running, because you get like notified and like you like put in your stuff, I was like, whoa, like this is crazy. Like, it's crazy. Like I didn't even believe it. And then when I got a text the morning I got it, I was like, no way. Like, really? And it's crazy because like I worked so hard that year, but not necessarily for Gatorade Player,
right,
but just to get looks, to get better, to like strengthen my craft, like to perfect it. Wasn't necessarily for Gatorade Player, so that was like a huge blessing, and it was like really cool. Like it was really cool.
So then going into senior year, was there a thought like, oh, we're just gonna back to back this?
Oh yeah, I was like,
you're
I'm going back to back.
I'm going back to back. Okay.
So then my senior year, I was like, I'm going back to back.
You're gonna put a little
Yeah.
bit more like
Yeah.
So what did it mean getting the second one? Where you're like, hey, I was Gatorade Player of the Year 2 years in a row.
Yeah, it's again.
I don't know how many people can say that. It's pretty big.
Like,
yeah.
Huge blessing. Like it's just such a crazy thing to think about and to say, and I like wouldn't be able to do it without like my family, like everyone who just like really supported me and like pushed me through it. So it's like a huge blessing, and it was a whole team thing. Like I wouldn't have been able to do it without my team. Like same with my junior year. Like Gatorade Player was also because of them too. So it's just because of everyone, the people around me and stuff.
So we mentioned training a little bit. So let's talk about now that you're in college, you've spent a little bit of time now away from home, different environment. Tell me the biggest differences between high school training and kind of what those practices and activities look like, and now at the college level at BYU. Like how much more intense is it? Like talk about like the time you're spending, early morning practices, and what that looks like compared to, I mean, you're working hard in high school, but more of kind of just like a normal school routine.
Yeah. So in high school, like I always tried to work hard just to be prepared for college, but I don't think, you're not necessarily like 100% prepared, because going in, like I was like, okay, like I'm good, like I got this, but it's kind of like a shock. You're going up against a bunch of girls who are always giving 110, who are like fighting for every ball, like doesn't matter, and who also are all like strong, and they're grown women.
Yeah.
I mean, I have like a 24-year-old on my team. Like, there's grown women you're playing against. And then I went to Italy and played against a 33-year-old. Like the difference is like they're grown and they've been through this over and over again, where high school, it's like everybody's trying something new. Like it's different, but college, like everybody knows what they want. Everybody wants to go to WNBA, things like that. So biggest difference is just the intensity. Like everybody's pushing, everybody wants, you're fighting for a spot, And so that's like the difference. I think everybody just wants it more.
Was there anything you did in high school that you look back where you're like, that really prepared me? Or like, oh, I'm glad we did those. Like, is there anything that you can think of?
I would definitely say conditioning wise, I've been good.
Yeah.
Like I've been good, and I've kind of been prepped. My coach Cops, I
heard a little bit about him from Adrienne.
It's like Hell Week.
Yeah.
Hell Week was Hell Week. And I think that prepared me so much for college conditioning, because college conditioning seems like a breeze. Like a breeze, but like it's still hard, but Coach Cops killed us.
Yeah.
I mean, we were up and down always though. Like we were never out of shape. I feel like that's our season. Like junior year, yeah, no, never out of shape. And so that prepared me a lot. And being physical with others, just always like bumping people, and prepared me too. So those two things, like as much as I hated Coach Cops conditioning, it definitely prepared me.
Do you think that being kind of a multi-sport athlete too, like still, especially doing track and, keeping up with like physical conditioning, and now basketball is more of like a year-round sport where people go right into club. But I think for some, if you don't have like something to fall into, you'll kind of take a break.
Yeah.
So do you think that helped?
Oh yeah. I think playing multiple sports growing up is amazing. Like I wouldn't be the athlete I was today if I didn't play soccer, if I didn't run track, if I didn't go play volleyball. Like they're all hand in hand, yet so different. Soccer like helped my hand-eye coordination, like speed, conditioning wise, and track like just kept me so well and conditioned. And it also is like different team works. Track was like individual, but a whole. So it just teaches you so many different things. So I think if you have the chance in like high school or just to play as many sports as you can, because when I played club soccer, my coaches hated it if you played multiple sports. So, which I guess sometimes is bad, but I don't think you should ever just play one sport. I think you should, try a bunch, see how you do in each. And
well, if you never left soccer, you would have never known. If you were like, hey, you know what? Okay, I'll just stick with soccer and not try anything else, even though we weren't that happy with practices. I mean, I'm sure you still would have made college, but you would have had a completely different experience. And you know.
And so playing multiple sports is great. And for me, I think like a huge blessing that is like my support system my parents never forced me to play they were never like play soccer or play basketball or run track. So they kind of just let me try what I wanted to try. And when I loved it, okay, go do it. And I think that was like a huge like thing that just helped me, find where I wanted to go.
That kind of reminds me, I mean, when I think of like mental toughness, like we mentioned like an injury in 8th grade that was pretty serious injury. We talked a little bit about that junior and senior year, kind of some of the ups and downs at the end of the year where you win Gatorade Player of the Year, but you don't get to go as far with the team as you might have wanted.
Yeah.
Because right now, I mean, it sounds definitely like you've won at a lot of things. Like did well, but there were definitely kind of like hills and valleys. Like how, as a student athlete, because again, I mentioned this at some of the previous interviews, like as a student athlete, you're juggling so many things. Family, full-time school, just like any other student that doesn't have sports to play, plus your sport, plus relationships, plus your brothers and sisters. Like how do you kind of find the balance and deal with all that?
So I think, because even now I'm still trying to figure that out, but it's just really not overwhelming yourself. I think like when I was at my lows is when I was like, okay, I need to do this. Okay, but I also need to like turn all this in. Like I try to do 1,000 things at one time. So like kind of giving you the leeway to just take a break, take some time off. I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that later. Like not necessarily push it aside, but just like give yourself a better schedule. Cause I think I'd overwhelm myself and I'd like fill my plate up. And then that's when it turned into actually like not performing well and stressing out. And then like a huge thing for me is like I have a hard time saying like no to people who like a coach would be like, I need you to do this event, this event, this event. Okay, but I also have 2 basketball games. Okay, fine. Yeah, I'll do it. Because I don't like to disappoint, those in my life who have like helped me a lot. And so with that happening, then I was like going from place to place and then ended up like hurting myself more. So I think it's just finding a place where you know that you have these things to do, but you allow yourself to just chill. Take a chill and like get things done one at a time.
So I feel like there was somewhere in there like a redefinition period of where I'm a soccer player, now I'm a basketball player, but I'm still a track athlete. And kind of, as you mentioned, having to like decide where to put your energy. Like how tough was it to kind of like tell people no and pick between those things?
Yeah.
And also like find the confidence in yourself where at some point I'm a good soccer player. And now in basketball, I'm kind of starting over in a sense. Like you're not coming in as the best basketball player. You got to kind of like work your way up. And it's a similar transition in college where you leave senior year as the Gatorade Player of the Year and top in the state. And then in college, you're kind of back at the bottom of the pecking order of like, hey, freshmen, get the water. And now I got to like, because everyone you're playing with, as you mentioned, was the top player on their team and in their state. And they're all coming as like, hey, I'm the alpha. And so how do you keep that intensity, like build yourself up enough confidence to be able to go into a new situation and still feel like, hey, I've done this before.
Yeah.
We're just going to work hard and get back to it.
Yeah, I think it's just having short-term memory. There's going to be like hard times, but there's also good. So there's the lows and there's high, and then you have to have short-term memory. You have to look past that. And it's kind of just, where's your work ethic at? Like how bad do you want it? How hard do you want to work? And that's kind of where my end goal, like I want to play, WNBA, I want to play in the Olympics. And so like the little things that are like stressing me out, even now, like my first like couple months of college, the little things like a bad practice or something like that, I just have to have short-term memory and like get it back the next day and then not dwelling on it, because that's just only going to make it worse. So I think really having short-term memory and how bad you really want it.
Tell me a little bit about and I saw it on Instagram, the trip to Italy you guys took. Tell me what that was. Was it a tournament or just like exhibition game? Like what you guys did out there and what that experience was like.
It was amazing. So we went out to Italy for 10 days and we played 3 games, and it was such a great experience. And so I was able to, play my first minutes with this team, and then also just experience a whole different culture, because basketball is not as big as it is in the States.
Right.
And we were able to do a camp for kids, and that like really changed like my point of view on like taking things for granted and stuff, because we like were playing with these kids from Italy and they like loved it. Like we chose like MVPs.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I feel like some camps that I did, they were happy, but these kids were like thrilled. Like they were like rolling on their backs, like just so happy. And,
Right.
and you don't, and you're just like, wow, like they love it. And it just made me love the game way more, just seeing those kids. And so it was a great experience. And I was able to travel to Sicily, Florence, Rome, Capri, Naples. Like it was just like such a great experience. And like I was so blessed to do that.
Had you ever been to Italy before?
No, I've never been out the country. So that was my first time.
I think that's one of the like greatest things about sports. Not only is it a great equalizer, but I feel like it does bridge and bring people together.
Mhm.
Like sports for me, when I was coming up, I played basketball in high school, was one of the first times I traveled outside of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So getting to see, even just across the United States, different people in different environments, different cultures. And again, basketball is different everywhere.
Mhm.
Like basketball in the Midwest is completely different than West Coast basketball and East Coast basketball. So you're like,
this is crazy.
it's kind of like another sport. You're like, oh, there's other types of basketball. Like I thought basketball was just basketball.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool, especially at an early age, to go and see like what it's like in other places. But also, as you were kind of mentioning with those younger kids, like see the appreciation that they have, where sometimes we'll look at it as like, oh, it's just basketball. Where for them, it's like
so fun.
Yeah.
So exciting. And that was like the best. And I think another really cool thing is like the people you meet. Like, so my friend on my team, also my head coach, Amber, they're from Italy, and it's been 10 years since they've been back, and they still had friends come out and support us, which is so cool to
so
think
it's like
about.
a little reunion.
Yeah.
Kinda.
And they still came and supported us. And I thought that was another like such a cool thing. Like basketball brings people together and like keeps people together. And even I've met like some of my best friends, and even on my team now, we have girls from Spain, New Zealand. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's one thing I look back at, and it's a little bit different now that we kind of have Facebook and a lot of social medias where you can kind of keep track of people that you used to go to high school with. But for me, like those relationships you made in like high school basketball and college, like you'll learn over time last forever.
Yeah.
I mean, you had friends in high school, but because you spent so much time basically in the trenches, and like you mentioned, all the running, all the like doing things you didn't want to do, like you had to kind of build a extra layer, like an extra bond that just like going to class and having a normal friendship doesn't give you.
Yeah, I'll say when I left for college, you think you have so many friends. I talked to like maybe a couple, and they're all the girls that I made from track team, basketball or soccer. There's the ones that I stayed close with, and it's like crazy because it's like, oh, maybe I only have 5 friends, but it's the relationships you build through a team or through basketball is a lot stronger than just the ones you make in class, for the most part.
So the funniest part to that, so we had our 10-year state championship reunion from our 2003 state championship. And I didn't keep in touch with a lot of these players, even on Facebook. You kind of just fall out. So I flew back to Milwaukee. They had this like big ceremony. It was like we never left.
That's
like
crazy.
You'll find, and I didn't expect that because I'm like, oh, I guess
forever.
maybe we weren't like friends. But once you get back around them, you'll feel like you'll remember this moment and you'll feel like you're back in high school.
Yeah.
It was like we never left, but they're grown and they have kids and families now. But the conversations we had, and we had these scrap booklets, like we didn't have all the cool digital stuff you guys have. So we had like physical scrap booklets and stuff the coaches brought, but it felt like it was 2003. And we were telling stories about the players and how the games were and the trips to Vegas to play in big time and all this other stuff. And like the relationships are like, I feel like it tethers you. It was stronger than I thought.
Yeah.
I think I learned something myself where I felt like I lost touch with a lot of people, but as soon as you saw them, it was like right back on.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah. So that's it. I think like sports gives you that really special bond where it's as close to family, I think, as you can get. Like if I think of any other type of relationship, like that's pretty much the one that's always just like a brother or sister. Like you guys can fight and argue, but if you come and you need them or you haven't seen them in a while and you come back home, like how it is. Yeah. Early now in your college career, kind of looking at what it took to get you through junior and senior year. You had a goal that you set, whether, again, right away, it might not have been Gatorade Player of the Year, but you're like, all right, I'm in basketball now. I want to play at the college level. Okay, I made it here. Now I'm starting in college, kind of starting from the ground up. And you kind of mentioned some goals that you had.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about those and how you see kind of the work that you're doing now and where you'd like that to get you.
So like overall, a huge goal for me is for BYU, like for my team to win a national title. Because right now we're the underdogs. We're brand new in the Big 12. And so that would be like amazing my freshman year to do that. And being the underdog is nice. Like, you know, we're not looked on as gonna go far, and so it'll be a shocker. And then for me personally is like I want to play. Like I want to be a starter. You know, I'm striving to get minutes and to help impact the team and really just starting to make a name for myself, because the overall goal is I do want to play pro. Like I want to play the WNBA. And so with that, I have to like put my head down and work, and having all these upperclassmen to like look to is kind of nice, because I get to see what I need to do and what I need to do better in a sense, just like to make myself to the top. So for my freshman year, I really want to play and get good solid minutes and be the best freshman. So
what are some of the things that you think you can and that you do bring to the table that can help you achieve some of those goals, basketball and non-basketball related?
Definitely my work ethic. I think I'm always ready to just work, put my head down and work, and also like I'm always willing to grab a rebound, grab the boards, and just like the little things. Like I'll do the little things, and I feel like bringing that is just bringing the intensity and like pushing other girls, and I think that's what I bring right now.
So I think family probably I'd put as like your consistent baseline of your support system of people who've been there. Because again, when you're going through different sports and different clubs, you're getting different coaches and people that are kind of like having their imprint on you all the way. And it's not really as solid because you're going from different styles of people, but family, as we kind of talked about before, is always going to be there. Through that journey though, as you kind of mentioned, like your trainer, there have been people in the sports space that have been like consistent. Talk to me about your trainer and about anyone else who kind of fits in that space of someone who's kind of seen you through the different sports and times and have kind of like been with you.
Yeah. So Sheldon, I met him through Jada, one of the girls that I played basketball with. And he's just was always willing to work me and like push me. I could ask him, be like, oh, before school, like 6 a.m. Yeah, sure, I'll be there. He was there to train. Like he never didn't want to train. Like he was always open to it. And even now when I'm in college, I'll have a rough practice and I'll call him. Like, what do I do? Or how am I supposed to do better in this? And for me, like having him in high school for a couple years was great. And he taught me so much. You know, he played pro, so he was able to teach me so much. And then also being able to, for college, like have a quick call when I'm like overwhelmed, just for him to talk me through it and get me through it. And so he's been just like the best trainer I've had. And then also obviously like family. But I also had another trainer like Paul. He was like my speed training coach, and he was also my brother. So my brother was with him, started like 8 years old. And I never really went. I kind of watched. He's like a speed strength coach, but he always encouraged. And then he helped me back from a ankle injury and like an Achilles injury, and just trained me and got me super strong, super fast for not only the track season, but college. So that was a huge deal. Even now, like he reaches out to me, make sure I'm good. And it's just those people who like still want to help you be the best and to make sure that you're healthy always. And so I got that. And then I've said like my family a million times, but I had grandparents who my grandma and grandpa are like, it's just crazy. Like they'd pick me up from sports. Like they'd take me, when I was playing for 3SSB in Natalie Wims, it was out of Utah. And so it's hard to get there. Like we had practices Friday, Saturday, and my parents have 5 kids, so they can't always, take me to Utah. So my grandparents would fly with me to Utah, get a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like the little things that make you so like grateful. Like I just have such a great support system who have always been there. And I have some like really like great close friends, that have always been there, like Sack and like Tubby, who've always just, even when I'm struggling in college too, I know who I can call, and I know who will like actually be there and like care. So yeah.
I think when I think about the trainers you've had, the coaches, and you've kind of talked a little bit about like hard coaching, and about the conditioning that you might not have liked when it happened, but really helped in the end. I think this is something that you, and I think the other athletes I talk to, and I tell all the younger folks, like, you guys will find, and it's one of those cringy things, I'll just say it like that, that once you get older, I'll start, now that I, for example, have like a 5-year-old daughter, I'll start saying things that my parents said. And you'll start looking back at the things that your parents did where you are like, oh, mom and dad. But now you're like,
that makes sense.
I get it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's the same with coaches.
Yeah.
Like some of the, like going through those hard practices, going through that, like even immediately from, like you said, conditioning stance, you're like, oh, like, oh, it was worth it.
That was
like,
worth it.
Are there things that you kind of look back at like that where like in the moment, hated it, maybe didn't like that coach or that like trainer, but now you can see like, oh, well, now I can make 10 for 10 free throws, or like dribble a lot better, or like I'm conditioned while other people might be on the side, like grabbing their knees.
Yeah. So conditioning for sure one. But also like free throws. I had a coach, or we call him Papa Lass, who'd like, he would sit me on the free throw line and he'd be like, okay, like make 100. No, like I'm not sitting here making 100, but I had to, you know?
Yeah.
And that's something I'm very grateful for. Even I'm not the best free throw shooter, but I know like because I did that, it's helped me a lot to get to where I am and things. And that was a big one. I can't think of, literally is conditioning. It was the ones that I'm just like, I'm done.
So then now if you can stay in that mindset and think of something that you probably don't want to do, or something that you know, even in this first freshman year, that you could, if you put the time in, really work on this thing to get better this year. Is there anything that fits that, like some people, for example, don't like, and you're not in this group, but don't like weightlifting.
Yeah.
Where that would be their thing of like, oh, if I just spent like a little bit more time here, it would kind of like the free throws. Like sometimes there are those things where you'll have like exponential gain. So for some people that don't weightlift at all, a little bit goes a long way. Is there anything like that for you where you're like, you know what, I could probably spend a little bit of time in a certain area?
Yeah, definitely my left hand.
Okay.
Like I know I need to get better, and I've been starting to, but it's so frustrating to be so like dominant and so strong in one, and then you go and make a layup with your left, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is embarrassing. Let me just stop. And so that's what I think I need to just do. You know, just get the left hand work in, because I know I need it, and I know like benefit me. But it's just putting the time in doing it.
So BYU stands for
Brigham Young University.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about BYU. Let's say not necessarily from a sports perspective. Let's just start from a college and university perspective. What is BYU? What is it all about?
So there's a lot of stereotypes of BYU, and what it is. People call it a Mormon school.
Yeah.
I am an LDS, but I think it's bigger than that. I think people don't understand that you're going somewhere where they care about your beliefs, the spiritual aspect, and going into school, we started every day with prayer, and really just tied in, you know, the bigger picture, what's like most important, and we had people of all different religions, and in my class I had a Muslim, just different people, and nobody there's stereotypes that people Brigham or BYU kind of like isn't diverse, but I think we are, and it's different because we're able to play sports and go to school, but also have that spiritual aspect that we're able to pray, and we're able to do all that and like incorporate with that every day. And I think that's different from a lot of universities. Like you don't see that everywhere. And so I think it's Brigham Young.
Okay. I mean, Matt, I don't know too much about the Mormon religion outside of it's going to sound funny, but I swear it's somehow educational, like the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like actually lays like a decent foundation for
Yeah.
someone that doesn't know. And again, in the Midwest, I don't think I knew what it was at all.
Mhm.
We didn't, it wasn't until I moved out here because it's really big, like in like Utah.
Yeah.
And my wife's, the company that she works for is 100% in Utah.
Yeah.
Except for her, apparently. That like I learned a lot through their company and the different people as they like come to Vegas for work trips and stuff. And that kind of like introduced me into kind of that world. The question I would ask is, how have you found that balance? Because I would imagine, I could be completely wrong, but I'd imagine that in the Polynesian community, Mormonism isn't probably like the dominant religion. I would start there. Like, how have you like navigated that waters between, and I don't know, like, is there a dominant religion in?
So it's like Christian, but
Okay.
there's a lot of
Okay.
in Polynesian culture, there's a lot of Mormons.
Would you say that, and this is kind of just, we're learning here.
Yeah.
We're learning. In the Polynesian community, is it more, I'm speaking really slowly, like Obama. Is it more spiritual than religious? Like when I think of Polynesian like community, I don't initially like associate a religion with it, which tells me like, oh, like nothing like pops and stands out as like an outsider person looking in. But I do like know like all those core concepts of like family, like spirituality, like all that stuff, where I wonder, like, from your experience, like what it's been like navigating that, or maybe like it hasn't been challenging.
Yeah. So I think Polynesians all have that base.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody sees, and that's how it is. But for me growing up, like not everybody, a lot of my family was religious in the sense they all were not our same religion, but a lot of them are. And so you'd be surprised. There is a lot of polys that are Mormon, but I don't know how to say, like, different.
Okay.
So, like, we're all Mormon, and that's how I grew up too. But it's just different beliefs, different things like that. But we all have the same core foundation of like Jesus, Heavenly Father, like that kind of thing. That makes sense. So
going to BYU, was it what you expected? Is there anything that shocked you, or was it like, oh, this is?
Yeah, I never wanted to go to BYU actually ever, but I was expecting like these uptight, like scripture read, like do all that, which I'm very faithful. Like I love my religion and been like through ups and downs with it, but I'm not the type to just like scripture, blah, 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 blah. But it wasn't like that. So that kind of like was a shock for me that it wasn't all that. And there was, everybody, there's different religions, there's different beliefs, there's different, all the type of things. And, you wouldn't think that if you're an outsider, because there's so many like, BYU hates this, hates that. It's nothing like that.
Yeah, I think there are different, obviously, like as an outsider that doesn't have like experience in that space and has never like been to the BYU campus, you only know what you kind of hear about, etc. So it's good to like hear like someone with the like firsthand experience who've like just kind of went from, the high school to that environment and saying like, hey, like, it's actually not exactly what, all the stuff that you've seen or heard about.
Yeah. And I never wanted to go to BYU.
Yeah.
Ever. My mom was like, go to BYU, go to BYU, go to BYU. I was like, no, I'm not going to BYU. Just because, you want me to go there.
Yeah. Just naturally rebelled against it.
But, now look where I am.
Okay. So looking at the journey you've taken, we talked a little bit about playing multiple sports. How you're a proponent of that. When you're looking at other young poly girls that are coming up in any sport and kind of going through like a lot of the battles that you went through, what would be some advice that you give them, or just give a younger you, if you could kind of look back and say like, I wish I knew this, or I wish someone had kind of like told me to do this. What would those things be?
Not being ashamed of like how strong you are. I think, especially like growing up, I like hated it. I hated it because I kind of just was built like different.
I'm built
no, in a sense where it was like kind of embarrassing. Like I'm a fifth grader and I'm like taller than all the boys. Like I throw the football farther than, like, it's like cool, but then you think, and it's like, oh, I'm a girl. Like, But I think not being ashamed of it and being okay with being the strongest, like knowing that's okay, like that's good, and being willing to like stand out and being different than everyone. And I think just really letting yourself like go out there. I think I was always like, I'll just let them do it. Like I'll do it later. And being like poly like was a big thing. Whereas like they don't look the same. I'm taller than all of you guys. It's weird. But I wish I wasn't like that because I feel like I kind of missed out on some opportunities.
Right.
And so I would say to just embrace it. Embrace who you are and strive to, don't let anybody tell you what you can and can't do. I think that's a big thing is do whatever you want to do, and whatever you find that you love, do it and do it great.
Talk to me a little bit about, and because we just had her on the podcast, your relationship with Adrienne. Because you guys, I first started kind of filming high school basketball right around the mid to end of your junior year. And then kind of got introduced to you guys, like these little twin towers. It was like the Tim Duncan, like David, like you guys were kind of like that unit. And especially senior year, it was like just like a really great 1-2 combo to have. Tell me what it was like playing with her and what that like relationship that you guys had was like.
So I started my 8th grade year playing against her. So I hated her because, you know, she's the one that I'm battling with.
Right.
Did not like her. And then I went from hating her to playing with her. And that's when we started like building a relationship, and she's like my sister. Like, it doesn't matter if we don't talk for like ever, kind of like we were saying, talk for a while. Like I know that she'll have my back and I'll have hers. And then it just, our like relationship progressively got stronger. We developed as players too, like together.
Right.
Because we went from 8th grade to 9th grade to 10th, 11th, 12th, whatever. Now we're both in college. And also, when I joined a circuit, she wasn't on a circuit, so I made her, like, I told her to come play. So we both played on the same circuit together one last time. And I love Adrienne, and I don't think we'll ever, like, we might not talk all the time, but we know, you know, where we are. And it's just been fun being able to see each other grow, because we'll have memories, like, from 8th grade of her in her Schofield jersey and mine in my Silvestri. And it's like, what the heck? Like, now we're in college. And we know, like, it's all, we just grew together, both hating coaches, loving coaches. And it's just crazy how time has been, but still, like, she's my sister and nothing's going to change that. It's just the bond that we built.
That's pretty powerful. And I think there's a certain message in there that I'm going to like take and expand upon a little bit that like I preach to people all the time, because it's something I've learned, and I like tell you the same thing in my little journey. And it's not burning bridges.
Oh yeah.
And not hating people. Like, especially in basketball, like and especially with where times are now, like the chance that someone transfers schools, jumps in the transfer portal, like at any point you could become someone's teammate. At any point you could need someone, even outside of sports, that might have a connection you need, that might be in a position to help you. I've learned and have kind of over the years gotten much, much better at, you don't have to befriend everyone, and you can still compete really hard, etc. But you just never know when something's going to come full circle. And then again, someone that you competed hard against, that you were like, I don't like that person. All right, now we're teammates. So we got to find out how to get along and how to work together and how to create that. Like, you didn't have anything where you were like, that went too far. We're in a game, like, you got too physical or did something to hurt her, and then there's something you can't come back from. I see a lot of times, even in the sports space, that people get into those moments. Like the fights that just go too far, the things that get too personal, that sometime down the road, like, you're going to run into this person in a space where you're not going to be enemies, and you're going to need to like learn to work together, or it can be detrimental to you for something that like you might not have seen coming.
Yeah, especially like media coverage now. There's someone could just break your ankles and it's like, oh my gosh, I hate them. Or with the whole Haley Van Lith and Caitlin Clark, all of that, and they had to come out and say like, we love each other, like we don't. And I think that's like, media can really like twist things, and it can make people hate you. Like, okay, she said this about me, like what? So I think it's really just like you said, just not holding grudges, don't burn bridges, things like that.
And there's one nice thing I see about kind of this generation in the sports space where I think back in my day, like it was more like you weren't friends with people on other teams and other schools, where now like I'll go to the different combines to do film and stuff. Like all the top players get along and know each other. You go to the big Nike camps, you go to like the EYBL circuit. Like everybody in those groups are friends. And I see that as a benefit of, again, because you're going to play with those people on the circuit or that top camp or in the Olympics, like wherever it is, and like building those bonds. I feel like it's been helping that my generation probably could have did a little bit more of, instead of being 100% like, hey, you know, so I get it when the game's on.
I think it's
talking,
knowing when.
No French eggs. But sometimes when the game's off, you can have a conversation and shake a hand.
Cordial.
Yeah. And so I think that you guys do that pretty well. Sometimes a little bit too friendly. But for the most part, I think like it's trending in the right direction. I see it as like a very beneficial tool that's like helping the game and like helping sports grow. So I want people to be able to find you. I'm going to actually give you a camera. Camera's going to be right in front of you. I'm going to have you tell them where they can find you on Instagram. So give them your handle.
Okay. Instagram is Aaliyah Matavao, ALIA
You got to spell it because people like me that have very bad pronunciation or add different vowels to the end of it. Okay. So good. So we'll overlay that on the screen so people can come, they can check out your highlights, they can find you on social media. Just kind of to cap it off, because again, I think a lot of what anything for sports we focus on is not just the athletics, but the student athlete as a whole. Sports is a big piece of it. I think it contributes. It definitely builds you as like a person and a lot of like the characteristics that are going to make you who you are. But obviously there are life experiences that we have outside of sports, goals, aspirations. When you look at your journey in sports and you're looking at kind of your journey in your career just as a student athlete, is there anything that stands out as far as achievements that you're proud of that you, through your athletic journey, were still able to kind of reach in different milestones along the way that didn't have anything to do with sports?
For me, it was just keeping A's and B's.
Okay.
School wasn't the easiest for me. School didn't really.
What was your favorite subject?
English.
English.
Yeah, okay. English was my favorite. I hated math. Like numbers didn't make sense to me. School is just hard for me. Yeah. So just keeping A's and B's was nice for me.
And what's your study or area in college?
Right now I'm undecided.
Okay.
I like so many things. I don't know what I want to like commit to until I like know.
Okay. That's fair.
We'll see.
That's fair. Well, I want to thank you for coming on and joining the podcast. I think this was a great spirited conversation.
No, this is fun.
I think it let people, again, know a little bit more about you, people that have followed your career, that have seen the Gatorade Player of the Year, but getting to kind of like learn some of those insights, some of those trials and tribulations, the ups and downs. I always think, especially for younger athletes, just knowing that it's not everything you see on Instagram, that like you're going through and went through those challenges that they're going through, that they might feel like, this is only me. And how did Aaliyah do it so perfectly? And she's Gatorade Player of the Year, when you can like show like, hey, I went through major injuries. I changed sports midstream and was still able to like, with hard work, achieve some like pretty impressive things.
Yeah. Thank you. I think one more thing is like for younger, I feel like to not believe the media. I think now it's so hard to get caught up in like watching these highlights, watching like, holy crap, but she's so good. But I think it's very like political nowadays. Basketball, I feel like, you know, you're top, but you're like filmed the most, So I think just focusing on yourself, focusing on your craft. This media, like I think, is blown up a ton. And it's really like easy to get caught up in the stars and the rankings. And that's not where it is.
I agree. And we're in that space. And that's kind of like, so like one of the things that we do as a company, like anything for sports, we don't do rankings at all. Like our thing is just about players, athletes, athletics, and putting outs and providing exposure to each individual and not necessarily like pitting them against each other. And I don't know who to give credit for this, but I was watching a sports podcast and they talked about like one of the biggest downsides of like sports media now is like when we were growing up, you could really only compare yourself against local talent.
Yeah.
You didn't have YouTube and Instagram. Like now you're like, from a mental health perspective, you're having to compare yourself against Bronny James and all these top athletes constantly. Where before it was just the neighborhood. I got to be better than those kids and those kids.
Yep.
And now it's like, I think kids are putting a lot of pressure on themselves to reach levels that it's like beauty standards.
Yeah.
It's like looking at swimsuit magazines and Sports Illustrated every day, forgetting that there's Photoshop and a lot of these other things that go into it, and then trying to hold yourself to those standards. I feel like you said, focusing on you.
Yeah, just what you need to do. Because everybody grows up differently. Like, can't compare yourself to someone who started playing basketball when they're 2 and have a gym in their house, have their dad's LeBron James, you know, things like that. It's hard to see. And I struggled too, like watching all these girls. I'm like, bruh, like, how's she doing that? Like, why can't I dunk? Why can't I, So I think just focusing on,
But I think hearing stories like this where you weren't playing basketball since you were 2 and you made a transition literally junior year and were still able to go back-to-back Gatorade Player of the Year in a sport that you played a little bit, but it wasn't like since age of 2 she'd been dribbling, right? And show that maybe you don't have to put that much pressure on yourself. You can still play other sports. You can still enjoy yourself and still play at a D1 university, win back-to-back Gatorade Player of the Years, and still have like a balanced lifestyle.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for joining the podcast. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Again, my name's Drew Jackson. This is the Anything for Sports podcast. You can find us on Instagram at Anything for Sports and on YouTube at Anything for Sports TV. See you guys in the next one.
Woo-woo.